Hey, before we get into the episode, I want to tell you about something I'm trying called Podcast Club. Here's why. If you've been on social media, even at all lately, you might have noticed that everything is starting to sound and look the same. It's not about having real conversations anymore. It's about performing for the algorithm, and half of it sounds AI generated. So I wanted to try something different. Podcast Club is like book club, but for this show. Once a week, we'll get together live on Zoom and actually talk. What do you want to go deeper on? Where are you finding that you feel resistance? And how can you take what you've been listening to and actually apply it to your life? It's for women who listen to this podcast and want to be in real conversations with other women like them. If that's you, head to consciousedge.com/club. Pick the days that work for you. I'll save your spot, and I can't wait to see you there. Are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? That is the question that I asked my clients this week, and it landed hard for a lot of people. So I know the listeners of this podcast will also find it meaningful. There's three things that I want to talk to you about today, and the intention is to help you shift from maybe any anxiety or fear or pressure that you feel around your business and making money, and have you come from a much more solid place that you can make decisions that are going to help you win this game of business and also be okay maybe in those moments when it doesn't feel like you're winning. So let's dive in. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alecia St. Germain, founder of the Conscious Edge. And for many, many years, I built a business based on people pleasing and making sure that people liked me. I did a lot of things myself. I didn't have the right team around me. And at the point where I was trying to balance running a coaching business, being a real estate investor, a new mom to two little babies, a wife, running a household, and it became too much. And so I started to overhaul my life in a very meaningful way and started to look at my business practices and do more than just make money, but really understand how business works and how to drive revenue. And also learning to manage my emotions better, lead people better, and be able to get back ultimately the time that I felt that I never had. So that's what I help women do now today inside of the Conscious Edge. If you are new here, I want to say welcome. So glad that you are here. We put these episodes out weekly. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button so that you're notified when the latest episode comes out. Okay, so playing to win versus playing not to lose. This has been used in several different people's work in different contexts, some in the basis of psychology, some in the basis of business, some in books. But the idea that playing not to lose versus playing to win for me in the context of my work really comes from the idea of, are you making decisions from a place where you are protecting yourself from the bad things that you don't want to happen? Or are you making decisions that are going to move you closer to your vision? And so one of the things that when we talk about self-protection, I use a methodology in my coaching called Immunity to Change, which focuses on identifying a big assumption that is running counter to a goal that you might have. And that big assumption is informed based on early childhood, early in your life, a series of small events that your brain strung together to meaning make the world. And it informs your thoughts, your actions, and how you feel about things. And it's basically your operating system for how you interact with the world. And so sometimes those big assumptions that you've created run counter to the things that you're trying to now do in business because it doesn't realize that your situation is different and the circumstances are not the same and you are not the same person and you are not under the same restrictions that you were when you were a child and you were trying to get your needs met. It just knows that this feels really familiar. And so it can start to feel like self-sabotage. Now, when I was talking to my clients this week, I don't know why the sports analogy came up so much, but I'm going to relate today's episode to the way that we play sports and some of the things that we experience in sports. I was not someone who grew up super athletic. I did a little bit of drill team, wasn't the most coordinated, and I'm not a particularly competitive person. It drives my husband crazy because he is so competitive and I just don't engage in that when we play games and things. And it's so funny to me. But I do think that there's a lot of parallels that run in sports, and a lot of my clients have played sports. And so when I start to relate things to experiences that they've had in the past when they've been in competitive sports, they really start to understand how that relates also to business. So even if you are someone who is not super into sports, I think that you could probably find some parallels still that are very relevant. And there's probably something competitive that you participate in that you could probably draw some relation between. Okay, so I want to share with you 3 concepts today, and then we'll dig into each one of them. The first concept that I want to share with you is knowing the risks of the game you're playing and then protecting yourself appropriately. So, one of the things that I will oftentimes see happen in business is you want to avoid any bad outcomes. And when you're looking to avoid those bad outcomes, it can cause you to hesitate more than is maybe necessary or more than you should. Because the whole concept of entrepreneurship is that you are the person taking on risk versus an employee who's employed by someone else and someone else is taking on really the risk in the business. So I think that you have to look at your risk tolerance for the game that you're playing. And sometimes that means that you're going to grow slower because your risk tolerance is lower. And sometimes people can have a little bit more risk tolerance, but also there's more volatility that may happen. And so being able to plan appropriately for that volatility is really important. If you're someone who's willing to take on more risk, that may mean keeping a bigger reserve, essentially, so that if things don't go the way that you planned or worst case scenario happens, you're still financially okay personally. Running so razor thin that when the highs are high and then the lows are low can create a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. So if I compare that to, well, I was talking to a client and we were talking about her experience playing softball and how when you go up to the plate, you have protective equipment on. You've got a helmet if you're going to be swinging at the ball. The person who is the catcher is fully clothed. I think of a hockey player. The goalie wears way more protection than somebody who is out playing offensively or defensively outside of the goal. And that is because the risk of injury, the risk is greater when you are the goaltender or someone who has like whatever puck or ball is coming directly at them. Their risk of injury is much higher. So more protection is put in place. But if you were to try to wear the catcher's gear or the goalie gear and then go score or hit or be going after the puck, then you would be very bogged down and it would be very clunky. It would be much harder to get there. And so there's the appropriate amount of protection and defense that you want to have in place based on the risk of the position or whatever it is that you're playing. And so how this translates, if you are not wearing the proper protective equipment for the position that you're playing, your risk of getting hurt is high, right? And so that is compared to when we make those really risky decisions in our business and we do it without legal counsel and we do it without having an attorney review, or we're maybe not holding back enough money. I even think of like holding back enough money to make sure that you can cover your payroll and you can cover the payroll of the people who work for you if you're going to make a riskier investment or take a risk on something or test something out, that you aren't dependent on that thing working in order for you to make payroll. So it can look a couple different ways. It can look like the legal contracts that you put in place. It looks like the entities that you put in place. It looks like the amount of reserves that you keep in your bank account that allow you to take on those risks. And it's the appropriate amount of protection. On the flip side, and I ran into this a lot when I was training real estate investing, is people would be looking to buy property at a significant discount. And so then before they'd start investing, they would take their contract that they wanted to use for real estate to lock up real estate, and they would take it to their attorney, and their attorney would be looking at all the possible risks that are involved for that investor. And they would start to create this ironclad contract that was so advantageous to them as the investor and not at all advantageous to the seller, who's, by the way, offering at a discounted price, that no one would do business with them. So they could never get a offer accepted because they would be buying at a discount, but then they would want to have all of these inspections and all of these things. And not that you shouldn't inspect, but that they would want to have all these contingencies in place that the seller could go list it on the MLS and have the same contingencies. My point being, there was no benefit to the seller working with those individuals because all it did was tie up their property, and then eventually that person would probably be ending up walking away because they couldn't get their mind wrapped around the risk, essentially, that was involved in buying real estate. Versus someone else who had maybe a few contingencies in their contract. It was very easy to work with them. And they accepted that this was their business. They were an investor. They knew they were taking on certain risks, but they look to win more than they lose, right? So some deals you might not win on, you might not do well on, but you've got enough other deals that it's okay if every now and then you have a bad buy or something like that. So they became easier to work with because they were appropriately protected. They were wearing the right protection for the position that they were playing. And so then it became a win-win. So you can start to overprotect yourself in business to a point where people don't want to do business with you. And so then you're having the very thing that you don't want to happen, which is that you don't make any money or you don't lose any money. Let's say you don't lose any money, but you also don't make any money. And so that's when you're playing not to lose versus actually playing to win and being willing to risk it. Now, it's really hard sometimes when you're in a sport that you have played and you do get hurt. Let's say you're in the process, you might be the batter stepping up to the plate and you actually get hit by a ball. And then the next time you're up to plate, you're thinking in your head, oh my gosh, what if I get hit? What if I get hit? What if I get hit? If you're bringing that to the plate, then it's gotten into your head and it's going to be a lot harder for you to get on base because you're going to maybe not swing. You're going to jump out of the way on things that are actually strikes. And you end up striking out essentially because you're so afraid of getting hit. So I do think it's really important when you've had those moments that you do end up hurt or something doesn't go the way that you want it to, you do have to take the time to process that experience that you've had and look at, what could I do to avoid that? Is that just part of playing the game? Am I making it mean something that it isn't? Having the occasional bumps and bruises in sports is just part of the game. And I think sometimes the market shifts or something doesn't work out the way you thought it would. You did everything right and you still got hit. Sometimes you just have to look at that and say, this is part of playing the game. And I don't need to make it mean I did anything wrong, or there's something additional I would have done differently, or that was a bad person, the pitcher's a bad person. Sometimes it's just something that happens and it's part of playing the game, and we don't need to make it mean anything at all. And we don't have to carry the grief and the worry and the concern, because the likelihood that it's going to happen again, it could, but also trust that you're going to figure it out if you're going to be in this business that you have. So it's really looking at the emotions and the fears that you're carrying when we're talking about the risks of the game and protecting yourself appropriately. Is if someone gets in your head, or if you let that fear of getting hurt get in your head, you're not going to play as well. You're going to be really playing not to lose. Now, the second thing that I want to talk to you about is your attachment to winning versus being invested in winning. So when you are attached to winning the game, what I mean by that, I really would equate that to think about that like money. Like if I am winning, if I am making money in my business and I'm attached to it, then I am making that mean something about my safety. I am making it mean something about my worthiness, my value, what I am bringing to the table. A lot of people have shifted to this place where the amount of money in your bank account and the amount of success that you're having in your business is directly correlated to your self-worth and whether or not you are doing well in life. And if you're not, then the self-talk and the criticism and the way that you are treating yourself and potentially other people as well is affecting your game. And so I was having this conversation where this kind of all kicked off. I was having this conversation with a client and we were talking about the attachment of money and the emotions that someone carries around money and how that affects the game. I do think that you want to be excited about your business and passionate about your business, and you should love the game that you're playing, and you should care about whether you win or not. That's the whole point, is that you play the game, A, because it's fun and you enjoy it, but B, you do win. I mean, maybe a little different when you're in rec sports. It's just the fun of the game. That's a hobby. But I'm assuming that you're playing your business to win competitively. You want to win, and this is not a hobby for you. This is actually something that is creating wealth for you and moving you towards a lifestyle that you want to be living, or you are living a lifestyle that you want in this process. Even if there's moments that are hard, it's creating opportunity for you. So I'm not talking about the hobby rec sports type situation, right? So you want to win. And when you are attached to winning, there's a certain amount of pressure and anxiety that actually decreases performance. And so we were having this discussion. It was, well, I should care about winning. Yes, you should care about winning and you should be wanting to win. But when you are attached to it and you are emotional about winning while you're playing the game, you are at risk of getting your head all screwed up. And so one of the strategies, right, as the other players in the game, when we think about any kind of sport, if I'm playing defense and I can get in the head of the other player, sometimes those intentional times when the pitcher throws a little bit too close for comfort, and then it really does make that person afraid of getting hurt. So if the defensive player is getting in the offensive player's head, they don't perform as well. So having those ironclad nerves as a player and realizing I've got to keep my head in the game and I'm going to focus when I'm playing offense and I'm focused on winning and scoring, I have to keep my head. I have to be able to make really sound, solid decisions, have strategy, back off when I need to back off and go back and regroup with my team and get a new strategy. If I miss the goal, so to say, I miss the goal, I got to go back to my team. I got to kind of take a time out, get on the bench, talk to my team, and get back up there and not let myself get angry, fearful, lose my head, because then I'm going to make some decisions in my business, make some decisions on the court, let's say, where potentially you can get hurt, you can end up with a penalty, you can end up thrown out of the game, and you can end up losing. So when we talk about being invested in winning, that looks like solid strategy. That looks like betting on myself. My client said to me, whenever I got up to hit that ball, there was never a doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to get on base, right? And so you've got to bring that kind of mentality to your business. You chose to play this game. You're choosing winning. And sometimes that means you're going to lose some games. Sometimes that means you're going to miss sometimes. But that is part of it. So if you look at loss as ultimate failure, that is going to be a very hard, slow process, and you're not going to get there. Anybody who is in athletics will tell you it takes such a tremendous amount of practice and conditioning and experimentation and losing, like going out and actually playing the game and losing, to get to the place where you do consistently win. And you've got to be really resilient through all of that in order to stay in the game, in order to stay. Because if you lose it and you're like, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to get hit, I don't ever want to miss or strike out, I don't ever want to experience the discomfort in business, you're not going to get there. So really looking at being invested in winning means solid strategy, giving yourself the space to practice, allowing yourself the experimentation, and being able to deal with the loss after they happen. Not while the game is not over until the game is over. So dealing with that loss after the fact, or processing what could have gone better in playing the game, and really learning what worked and what didn't work as you went through and continuously getting better. So it's really having that practicing mindset where loss and failure doesn't mean ultimate loss and failure. You only lose or fail when you decide never to get back up to the plate. And then the third thing that I want you to take away from this or think about is, very often, I've experienced this and all of my clients will tell you the same. It's like when you are about, like you're so close, you can taste it. It feels like it gets very intense. Like life will start lifing hard at you. It will feel very intense. And because of that, you can question, if you're not comfortable with that pressure that comes at the end or that intensity that comes at the end, like right before you score or right before you win, when the other team's like really hustling. If you can't get comfortable with that intensity and increase your mental capacity and emotional capacity to be able to handle that intensity, again, you might think, oh, I don't ever want to put myself through that. It's too intense. I don't want to do that. I don't like how that feels. And then I start to hear maybe because this is hard, it's not for me. Maybe this isn't what the universe or God wants for me, and I'm supposed to do something else. And you've heard me talk about this before, that it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Just because it feels hard or because it's intense doesn't mean it's not for you. And so if you think about when you're playing a game and you're nowhere near scoring and you're like in your office and you're making your business cards and you're designing your website and you're coming up with all your ideation and you're in vision and you're creating all this stuff, it's not real intense. It's fun. It's just like fun time. But when you get down court, or when the score is tied, or when things are really intense and you're just like about to just have a slam dunk win, things get really intense. Now, you could think about this in a couple different ways. One is, if you are religious, you may look at it as when you are on a calling and this is what you are meant to do, and you are so talented at it, and this is your service to humanity or to the world. This is the thing you're supposed to do. And it feels really intense, like something is coming for you, like everything keeps going wrong, or it feels like it's a struggle to get there. From a religious standpoint, you might look at that as like the devil or the enemy doesn't like that you're up to God's work, and so it's coming for you. And so now it's like a test of your faith. If you are maybe more energetic in your way of thinking, or maybe both, you can also look at this intensity as the physical manifestation of the resistance that you personally have. And so that goes back to the big assumptions that I was talking about at the beginning, where if you have a big assumption, let's say that if I make more money, then people who have a lot of money are selfish, or people who have a lot of money are jerks. If you have that big assumption that you unconsciously carry because maybe you heard your parents talking about money and people who have money in a certain way, or maybe you had an experience of somebody who had a lot of money and you didn't like who they were, and you thought, I will never be that, you may have unconsciously created a thought about people who have a lot of money. And so as you're about to go to that next level of financial abundance, you may find that there's things that want to pull you off course. And it's a physical manifestation of kind of the energy that you're putting out there and the places that you hesitate, or the fact that you seem to have a habit of going having energy for 90% of the goal. And then once you get there, you're like, that's good enough. I'm not going to go into overflow. I'm not going to stress myself out to like really get that home run. And so it can create like a physical manifestation of your inner resistance. So just think about, as you're scoring, having the emotional capacity to stay in the game, to be invested in winning, but not attached to winning. Like, you don't make the fact that you won mean you're good, and if you don't win, you're bad. But having that emotional capacity to be in it when you're in it, when you're playing, and then after the win or after the loss, then allow yourself to feel the emotion. So I'm not saying don't be emotional. I'm saying you get to choose when and how you process these things. If you follow it ain't over yet, we are still in this, let's go, fight, win, then you're going to perform a lot better than if you're in the middle of it and going, oh, poor me, this is the worst, I suck, or that wasn't fair, or the ref made a bad call and the market shifted and I got penalized because my government changed the regulations on short-term rentals. And so you just quit before the game is even over. You're not going to get as good of results. So what you want to do is you want to take something all the way to that completion, all the way to the end of that game. And then after the game is over, then we feel our emotions. We celebrate the wins. Woohoo, that was amazing. We look at what was amiss And why was that a miss? And how can we get better? If we lose, we can grieve the loss. It sucks. It sucks to lose. But also, does that mean that we're done? Only you can choose that. Whether you do or don't, that's up to you. If you decide, I cannot take this anymore, I cannot take the emotional roller coaster that I am putting myself on, then maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you. And maybe getting a job that feels easier to you, maybe that is the right route for you. A lot of times when we offer that up to someone and a client considers it, they realize, they try it on, they're like, yeah, that's not really what I want. But maybe you're being tested a bit to see, what is it that you really do want? How important are these goals? Because one of the things that happens in the work that I do with my clients around unraveling these big assumptions is sometimes someone decides, you know what? I think my big assumption is true and I want to hold it intact. That is 100% fine. You can do that. You can hold that intact, but you can't keep your goal that it is combating in the way that it is. Maybe your goal is going to have to shift. Maybe life is going to have to look different for you because you're going to continue to hold that big assumption as true because you decided it was. You didn't find any evidence, or you didn't want to find evidence that it wasn't true, which is very likely. It's more that you didn't want to. It felt safer to you to hold that big assumption as true. It felt safer for you to continue to believe that people who make a lot of money are bad or whatever. And so therefore, making a lot of money is not an option for you. You cannot keep both things held at the same time. Something has to give. Either the goal has to change or the big assumption has to be unraveled a bit. And so if someone chooses that and they choose out of entrepreneurship, that is okay. It isn't for everyone. Don't make yourself wrong for it, but also own that decision. No one else chose that but you. And if you decided to hang up that my knees are blown out and my career has ended and I'm not going to keep going on that, then that's okay. You can retire from that. Some people choose to make it look different and invest in a different way or build a business in a different way that is more aligned to their nervous system and what they are willing to tolerate in their nervous system from a risk tolerance standpoint. You've heard Jen Boss and I talk on some of the monthly Money Talks with Jen about the peace tax. Sometimes it's worth it to make less or pay more just so you can sleep at night and not have that razor thin sort of risk tolerance. And that's okay too. So whatever you're choosing is fine. I want you to realize it is your choice, and it is how you are choosing to play the game. Do you want to play rec? Do you want to play rec sports and just have it be something enjoyable and not really something that you actually rely on and like build a business around that sustains you in a specific way and you just want to have fun doing it? Great. Go do that. But don't make yourself wrong or the market wrong or your customer wrong for just doing this thing that you just think is fun. Or are you going to play competitively and really build something for yourself that sustains you, your family, creates the lifestyle that you want, and builds a retirement for yourself? And either one is okay. But if you are going to play competitively to a point where you burn yourself out, that doesn't work either. You've got to be that person, that athlete in business that takes good care of their body, because that's the work that you do in the world, that depends on a team, builds and leads a solid team that helps them win, and then plan for when you can't play that game anymore. Make a plan for how you will retire and maybe even how you're going to pass on some of that legacy to others in your life that you care about. So it's all of those things together. And that is the work that we do at The Conscious Edge, is helping you build that financial capacity and plan that helps you sustain business today and into the future. It is the leadership work where we learn to manage our emotions, process them at the appropriate times, and interact and lead other people and handle their emotions well, where we set appropriate expectations and boundaries and that we communicate and hold people accountable in how we lead. When you do those things, most people think their problem in business is that they don't have enough time or money in order to grow appropriately. And I venture to say, if you are energetically in alignment and you have something that is on purpose for you, a calling for you, and it's in alignment with what you're good at and the purpose that you serve, and you take good care of your body, and then you manage your emotions around it, and you lead people well, that time and money fall into place. Maybe there's some strategic things that you may need from a financial perspective, or strategic things from how you actually make money in your business or the processes and systems you put in place. But with the right alignment, good, strong emotional intelligence, and leading people well, time and money really do fall into place. Those are the easiest things to solve. Where people really struggle is in those first three places where their capacity gets capped. When you go emotionally, I just can't take this anymore. Or you say, like, I want to do this business because I know I can make a lot of money, but it fundamentally conflicts with your values or who you are as a person. Or you expect everyone else around you to either change who they are in order for you to be okay because you aren't willing to have the hard conversations, or you're people pleasing. That is the parts that make business so hard. So if this resonated with you, I would love to invite you to come to Podcast Club. We have them most weeks, and it's just a place where we come together. And instead of this being a one-way monologue where I am just doing the podcast and you are listening to it and find it maybe entertaining, we actually take it into a dialogue or even a conversation that happens with other people. Take it into a conversation where there are other people who are doing business and who are up to the same game as you, and you get to have real conversations with me and with each other about what's coming up for you around the podcast. It's like book club, but without the hangover and the gossip. So I would love for you to come and join us. You go to consciousedge.com/club, pick RSVP for the dates that you're coming. And this is my way of really connecting with people, because one of my values and one of the things I love to do and my talents is just connecting with people. And I can't do that in a monologue, and I can't do that really effectively on social media because that's just a place where people go to perform. And I just want to have real, authentic conversations with people. And if this landed for you and you're realizing that you need a coach, I would love for you to reach out to me and consider me as your coach and what that might look like to work together. So, with all of that being said, I hope this was supportive for you, and I am sending you so much love. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.